Welcome back to Where is the Money? So the money is not with the consumer. So the University of Michigan just published their annual survey about the economy. More specifically, how the consumer is feeling about the economy. What is the sentiment? You feeling good? You feeling optimistic? You're feeling pessimistic? How people feel determines how they spend, determines how much money goes into the economy, determines if the economy heads to a recession or not. And this year, the consumer sentiment was extremely low. No surprise there.
Financial data raising fresh concerns about the economy. The University of Michigan's consumer sentiment report now nearing its lowest level ever, as years of sticky inflation and the lasting impact of the government shutdown loom large over American households. And ABC's Elizabeth Schulze joins us now to talk more about this. Elizabeth, so break down this consumer sentiment data. What does it say about the economy and how Americans are feeling right now?
Well, Rhiannon, people are not saying they're feeling very good. So this is sentiment data. Basically, what this is a survey of how people say they feel. So important to differentiate. It's not what people are actually doing in their spending, but it's what they're talking about and how they might spend. And this report did show that sentiment is at the lowest level in 3 years. It hasn't been at this low level since June 2022, and that was an all-time low. Keep in mind, back in June 2022, that's when we were looking at incredibly high inflation, a rate of around 9%. As Selena just mentioned, we're closer to around 3% inflation right now, which is still higher than a lot of households want to see, a lot higher than the Federal Reserve policymakers want to see. So what this report tells us is that people are starting to get a little bit more skeptical about the state of the economy given the government shutdown. It specifically says that the government shutdown is starting to show signs of worry in a lot of households, and that there is broad spread decline in sentiment among political groups, among population, ages, income. But Rhiannon, there was one notable exception in sentiment, and it says in this report, consumers with the largest amount of stock holdings are a lot more optimistic. That speaks to this disconnect we've been seeing, where Wall Street, while it was down a bit today, has been hitting a lot of records in the past couple of weeks. The NASDAQ was a little bit lower today. That was because of tech stocks. But overall, we do see this, a lot of optimism for people who are invested in stocks, a lot of pessimism for most of the rest of the households.
So this is shedding light on what we've already been feeling and have noticed from our own experiences every time we buy something or walk out the house, which is things are not good. The consumer sentiment now reflects that, saying like, listen, people do not feel great about this economy, so they're pulling back on spending, which does not help the already existing struggling Trump economy.
The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey came out late last week, so let's talk about what it is and what it showed. So first, what is it? The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey is a monthly pulse check on how Americans feel about the economy. So you can think of this survey as a mood ring for the U.S. economy. Every month, researchers at the University of Michigan call up hundreds of people across the country and ask them how they feel about their personal finances, the job market, inflation, and whether they think the economy is headed in the right direction. Their answers are all compiled into an index, and higher numbers mean that people are feeling confident, lower numbers mean they are worried. So why does it matter, and why do investors care? Consumer sentiment is a big deal because it influences spending. If people feel good about their financial future, they are more likely to buy stuff, whether that's groceries, concert tickets, or a new laptop. That spending fuels businesses, which in turn drives economic growth. But if sentiment drops, people spend less, and that can slow everything down. So what's happening right now? As of November 2025, the index is sitting at 50.3, down from 71.8 a year ago. So that's a pretty sharp decline, and it tells us that Americans are feeling cautious. Inflation, job cuts, and high prices are making people nervous. Even though the economy isn't in a crisis per se currently, consumers are in wait-and-see mode. So why should you care? This survey gives you insight into how people are feeling, and that affects everything from hiring trends to interest rates. It's a simple number with big implications.
Some feel like, yeah, it's a little down, but it's no big deal. Some people are sounding the alarms like, listen, this is a major problem, and this recession that they don't want to acknowledge can quickly turn into the depression of 2025. According to the survey, it's indicating that even more wealthier, rich consumers are starting to pull back and feel a little anxious, a little anxiety about the state of the economy. This is not good, because the only thing floating the economy, considering 70% of the economy is consumer spending.
So this recent survey found that wealthier consumers are feeling more pessimistic about the economy, and their confidence in the economy is tanking. They're more anxious about the economic future of the country. And you might be thinking, okay, who cares about rich people? Except the US economy runs on rich people spending money. So when they pull back, the entire economy will feel it. And I want to preface this by saying, even though wealthier consumers have soured, they are still way happier than the average lower income person. It's just their anxiety is kind of starting to catch up. And I think this is also an example of like the time lag. I think a lot of lower income people have been not feeling good about the economy for quite some time. And I think now wealthier consumers are just now starting to catch up. It's almost like a lagging indicator. So I think that's a sign that the economy actually maybe has not been doing that well for a while. And I'm not saying it's fair to care about, how they feel, but they do power a lot of consumer spending in this country. So it does have these ripple effects on everybody else. And so we're in this sort of like perverse situation where poor people have been struggling for months and middle income people are drowning. And now that wealthier people are starting to feel uncertain, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to do something kind of about the economy. And this is a good example of the K-shaped economy, which I've talked about in previous videos, where kind of the economic recovery is split. Sorry, this is a really bad version of a K, but like where its wealth stratification really increases. By the time that the kind of richer income groups start to feel pain, that lower income group has like already been in crisis for quite some time.
The lower class is only spending on necessities. The middle class is spending probably 80% necessities, 20% other items, not a whole lot to help out the economy, and majority of the spending at this point is done by wealthier consumers. So if the wealthier consumers are now starting to pull back, we're definitely in some murky water. So it was down 11 points to 52%, which is very, very low. The common go-to phrase when people acknowledge how bad things are, especially with the economy, is they voted for this.
So Michigan University just came out with a report that U.S. consumer sentiment is at the second lowest level on record. Consumer sentiment is now below the 2008 level. We all know what was going on in 2008. It was the beginning of the Great Recession. It's interesting because this comes a day before Treasury Secretary Besant admitted that some sectors of the U.S. economy are already in a recession. Now, there's a multitude of reasons for this. This shows that unfettered and unregulated capitalism is failing. You have corporate capture of our political system, which prevents any sort of corporate taxation to fund social safety net programs. And meanwhile, we have a gutted social safety net programs all across the country. We have wages that are stagnant. So we have wages not keeping up with inflation. We have wages not keeping up with standard of living, all while worker productivity is increasing over the past few decades.
The farmers voted for this and got slapped in the face with the Argentina deal. The people are sounding the alarms and frustrated by the lack of concern and frustrated by the lack of policies that help people get on their feet. What do you make of this new survey from the University of Michigan? Does it sound about right? Or do you feel like, it's no big deal? We should not be concerned about it. You tell me. Put your comments below. Let's talk about it. This is Where is the Money? Talk to you soon.